Hi, I'm Nico and welcome back to Nico and JC. We make travel diaries and some helpful tips for your next trip. In today's episode, we continue our Europe pilgrimage as we visit one of the most iconic landmarks, not just in Paris, but in the entire world. Samahan niyo kami as we experience Notre-Dame in Paris. After our visit to the miraculous Medal Chapel, we boarded our coach once again for another stop in our Paris pilgrimage.
It was Romanesque. Romanesque is a plain arch.
And this next destination honestly felt a little unreal. Because we were finally heading to Notre-Dame Cathedral, one of the most famous churches in the world.
We come for the where he had his. You will see a rose window. The rose window, the first one you will see.
We eventually got off the coach near the Latin Quarter and continued on foot through the Parisian streets. One thing I noticed immediately in Paris is how even ordinary streets feel cinematic. Around this part of Paris, cafes and brasseries are everywhere. And unlike grab-and-go culture, people here really sit down and slow down over meals or coffee.
Yep.
We passed by the RER station, Gare Saint-Michel, Notre-Dame. The RER is basically Paris's regional train system. It connects central Paris to suburbs, airports, and nearby cities much faster than the metro for longer distances. After a few steps, we saw the Seine River. The area around the Seine, including Notre-Dame, is actually part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site because of its historical and cultural importance to Paris. Along the riverbanks were tourists, street musicians, and these famous riverside sellers called Bouquinistes. The Bouquinistes are actually part of Parisian history, dating back hundreds of years. Traditionally, they sold old books and prints, but today you'll also find vintage posters, maps, postcards, magnets, tote bags, and art prints. Some even have vintage Vogue covers and old maps of Paris. And then finally, we saw it. Notre-Dame Cathedral.
Dito ko.
Ano, may data ko doon. Video lang yan.
Video.
Notre-Dame began construction in the 1100s and is considered one of the greatest examples of French Gothic architecture in the world. And of course, many people remember the devastating fire back in April 2019 which severely damaged the cathedral's roof and spire. So being able to see Notre Dame reopened again after years of restoration honestly felt very special. Notre Dame receives millions of visitors every year, making it one of the most visited monuments in Europe.
Wow.
Before entering, there's also security screening. Large luggages, sharp objects, and bulky bags are usually discouraged. So it's better to travel light when visiting major churches or landmarks in Europe. The facade of Notre Dame is honestly incredible up close. You will notice rows of statues depicting kings, saints, apostles, and other biblical figures carved into the limestone facade. The cathedral has three massive entrance portals, each filled with intricate carvings and scenes from the Bible. Pilgrims and visitors usually enter through the central portal, which traditionally represents the Last Judgment. Pagpasok namin, the entire cathedral felt solemn, quiet, and absolutely massive. You immediately notice the soaring pointed arches, ribbed vault ceilings, and the endless rows of columns leading your eyes towards the altar. Even the lighting feels dramatic in the best way possible. The cathedral was filled with both pilgrims and tourists quietly walking, praying, and just taking everything in. Looking from the ceiling down towards the altar really makes you appreciate how Gothic cathedrals were designed to make people feel small in the presence of something greater. Another thing I didn't expect was how much artwork is inside Notre Dame. We spotted paintings by Georges Braque on one of the interior walls. There are also massive religious paintings throughout the cathedral, including the Adoration of the Shepherds. And then on the other side, you see one of Notre Dame's famous rose windows. These enormous circular stained glass windows are among the cathedral's most iconic features and date back centuries. These are considered some of the most important surviving elements of French Gothic stained glass. We also passed by a faithful reproduction of The Crucifixion of St. Andrew by Charles Le Brun. Then we passed by the image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and syempre Mama wanted to stop and pray for a while because she's a devotee. There are also carved and painted wooden panels here dating back to the 14th century. After a few steps, we also saw the cathedra, or the ceremonial chair of the bishop, another important symbol inside Catholic cathedrals. We also passed by the chapel associated with the Crown of Thorns, one of the most important relics connected to Notre-Dame.
Gusto na talaga po magpahinga.
Kasi kaya iba sinabi, stress. Eh, na nandito na.
Sayang naman po.
As we continued walking through the cathedral, I kept thinking about how much restoration work happened here after the fire. Hundreds of artisans, architects, engineers, and historians worked together for years to restore parts of the Notre-Dame as faithfully as possible. Everywhere you look inside the cathedral, there's another detail waiting to be noticed. Even the marble floors feel significant. I mean, imagine the number of pilgrims, visitors, clergy, and historical figures who have walked these same paths over hundreds of years. After a few more steps, on the opposite side we saw another massive stained glass rose window. We also passed by a painting, The Descent of the Holy Spirit, by Jacques Blanchard. These are enormous religious artworks donated yearly by the Guild of the Paris Goldsmiths during the 1600s. By this point, honestly, I felt like we could spend an entire day inside Notre-Dame and still not see everything.
Ang ganda ng paintings.
Whether you're religious or not, this really feels like one of those places you have to experience at least once in your life. And walking back out into the streets of Paris afterward honestly felt surreal. After years of seeing Notre-Dame in books, documentaries, news, now we are finally here. Even after everything we saw inside, parang feeling ko kulang na kulang pa rin yung oras. Every corner of the cathedral carries centuries of history, art, faith, and restoration. And seeing it after the 2019 fire made this visit feel even more meaningful. If you enjoyed this virtual tour of Notre-Dame, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Nico and JC, and hit the notification bell para makasama pa namin kayo on the rest of our Europe pilgrimage series.
Going to church inside the Sacred Heart.
Thank you very much for traveling with us. We'll see you on the next one.